All right, thank you for joining me. My name is Hoda. For those of you joining for the first time, what we will be talking about today is, of course, having your questions answered. So I hope you came loaded with questions, and I am looking forward to answering them. I'm very excited to hear your questions. A little bit about myself. I'm a career development professional. And one of my skills is that I help people find their way and follow through on their career and education path. So, really excited to be here and really excited to hear your questions. So, my question to you before we get going is, are you ready for change? What we have learned is that things are going to be changing because of the current circumstances, and no one really knows what's going on. In my opinion, it's a guessing game. Everybody says things are going to change, but no one really knows how. And what is important to you and to me is that to be ready for that change. There are many ways we can get ready for that change, and one of them would be to either develop that skills, and that would be a good idea to develop those skills if you have the energy for it. Now, I understand that many of us don't have that energy, and that is okay as well. So, what you could potentially do is spend some time reflecting on the skills that you have, the values that you share with others, and use that knowledge to find a job that is out there. Lots of companies are hiring right now, and if you're not looking to change jobs right away, or you're still lucky enough to have a job, then definitely, but are considering a move, then definitely reflecting on your skills and values would be a great idea because changes might be coming. So the question that I want you to take with you for the week and think about it until we meet next week, of course, is, are you ready for that change? I'm going to answer your questions to the best of my ability. You have to do is type your questions in the chat box. And I want to remind you, because I did get a couple of emails before, that there are no right or wrong answer. If it's a question that is bothering you and that is on your mind, I'm sure it's on everyone else's. And you might as well share it. And the thing is here, no one knows that you typed that question. No one knows who asked that question. It's all anonymous. I won't be reading and saying someone asked that question. It'll be just be a question that was posed, and we will work together on answering it. Another thing I would like to remind you of is that no question is too silly to contemplate or share. That was when I got an email last week. Someone said, oh, I think I thought it was too silly to type it in. But again, reminder, there are no judgments in this call. On my part, I promise you that if I don't know the answer, I will be honest enough to say I don't know the answer. But I do commit that I will try to answer it. I will find the answer for you. This is going to be done either next week if you don't say follow up on it. I will start with the questions that were unanswered next week, but also I can send you the answer directly if that is what you choose. So, and I'm going to pause the video here because I'm going to be reading the chat box, and I don't want you looking at me staring with my eyes, but I will be reading the questions in your chat box. So if you haven't typed your question yet, feel free to type it now. But otherwise, here we go with the questions to your answers. So the first question I have, should I get a job at a startup in the growth stage? There are many ways to answer that question, and it all depends on you. Are you looking for a job in a startup? Startup offers different opportunities than a big or established companies. It is in a growth stage, so that's of course a good thing. It'll guarantee you a job. From my experience and my clients' experience, startup has given them more flexibility in the times they show up to work, in the hours they put in from home, although of course we know this could be potentially changing. And it has also offered them the opportunity to get more personal connections with their colleagues at work. So it's definitely more, I wouldn't go as far as a family style, but more of real connections with colleagues in that, because the number of employees is typically smaller. And so you will get more of that one-on-one interaction with your, even sometimes the president of the company, who will show up and make the time to hang out with you. Typically, with the tech industry, startups, there's lots of perks to be had. If good coffee is important to you, snacks and opportunities like that, then it's definitely a good idea for you to join and a startup. The drawbacks to a startup is there may not be a lot of opportunities to go up and advance at work in the hierarchy, because again, the small number of employees means less opportunities for growth. But it depends on you, and definitely what you are looking in that opportunity. What values are important to you, and do they match your values? Okay, moving on. Let's see. Should I take a day off to go to interviews? That's a very good question. And I would say yes, if you are the type of person who get nervous and you really need time to unwind before the interview. But I would say maybe take half a day off. The thing about taking day off from work is what you need to be careful is that your employer does not know that you are interviewing. Um, so unless you've already shared this with others and everyone knows that you are planning on leaving the company that you are currently working for, then that is okay. But typically you don't want anyone to know that, because then you would jeopardize your situation. What if that interview does not lead to an opportunity? How will you handle that? How will that affect your long-term goals if the company finds out that you were interviewing for other opportunities and they decide to let you go? So lots to think about. And otherwise, if you can call in sick, if that's what you need, if you need a day off to prepare, like you haven't had time to prepare for the interview, or you need time to unwind. I know I do need about half hour just stretching a little bit, getting into the mood to perform well. Then for sure go with what you need, because you do want to do well on the interview if it's important, if the job that you applied for is important. I can't think of any other conditions for you to consider, except yes, that very important point, which is you do not want your current employer to find out you're interviewing if the current job you're in is important to you to keep until you find another opportunity. Because that will affect how you progress at work, affect your bonuses. It could affect the type of job duties you will be given once they find out that you are planning on leaving anyway. All right, moving on. That was a good question. Moving on to the next question. Is there any job out there where I can show up late? There are, of course, a lot of opportunities where you can work late. I know with the post office, with some of the city and government jobs where they have different shifts. So you don't have to show up early. So when anything that is open for 24 hours will have afternoon and evening shifts, and sometimes overnight if that's what you need. So lots of opportunity within the government, whether it's federal, municipal, or in Canada, it's provincial. I know, for example, I can give you the transportation, Calgary Transportation. They have a 24-hour call center where you can pick a shift. I know Canada Post is the same. They have 24-hour positions. And typically shifts will run either from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. and then 8 to 3 or 8 to 4. And then the afternoon shifts will start around 2 p.m. and after Retail is, of course, another option where you put that as a condition that I only want to work evenings. And so definitely a lot of opportunities that way. Now, we did talk about startup earlier on, and some startups allow you to work from home. So it depends on your line of work, on the skills that you have. Some startups and some larger companies nowadays allow you to work from home. So you work kind of your own hours, and the focus is more on your accomplishments rather than on the hours you put. So this is definitely different than the government jobs. What you need to keep in mind is that you will be judged on your accomplishment when the hours are not counted. And so there will be meetings, certain meetings in the morning, but you can always schedule them late and kind of say you've booked the morning for work and to work on your emails and other opportunities. So definitely a lot of work nowadays, particularly with the advancement of online opportunities where you can show up late and perhaps not show up at all, depending on the line of work that you work in or that you are hoping to choose in the long run. Okay, so we still have a few questions, so that's exciting. We'll move on to the next one. Is it better to go to college and learn a specific skill or go to college and practice learning miscellaneous stuff? So college and learning a specific skill versus college and practice learning miscellaneous stuff. This will depend on you. And what are your goals? I always work when I work with my clients, we actually start first by defining their goals. And if your goal is clear, you know where you want to be headed, then yes, that should be easy to go to college and learn a specific skill. But sometimes it does get complicated in that I had a client once who wanted to get into medical school, but right before you get to medical school, you have to have a bachelor degree. And so the opportunities were vast for that client in that how do you narrow to one that could guarantee me a medical school, where of course there is no right or wrong answer to that, and there is no way of finding out except for going ahead with the choice of a program. So here we go with that, in that there is a focus on your interest, your values, and where you want to be headed. And that, of course, is very crucial because that will guide you in that specific skill, let's say. Now, would you go to college and practice learning miscellaneous stuff? This is rarely an option. I would say nowadays there are a lot of vocational schools and schools that offer courses, in particular like 1 or 2 courses that you can go ahead and take rather than go to college and just practice. College is a bit more expensive typically, but if you narrow down your choices to a couple of courses to get you started on figuring out where you want to be headed, that could be an option. Again, when you say practice learning, if you are thinking of the institutes that allow you to, let's say, a cooking school, to go and practice cooking in different kitchens, different restaurants across the city, then if that's where you want to be headed, that could be a good way rather than going to college and just taking courses. But it all depends on your interests, on where you want to be headed, and on definitely if you have goals or not. And that will decide how you want. If you have, if you would like, you can send me another question here on the chat box. If we have time, I'll answer it. But if not, it's okay to just for now sit back and relax and think about your goals and values and move on and come back next week and ask a question or send me a question by email. We still have time and we still have a few more questions, so I will go ahead with the next question. I have no idea what I want to do once I graduate from high school. What should I do? This is a very good question, and it's very common. It's why most of my clients come to me. What I would like to tell you is that there are a lot of resources out there, but definitely first talk to other people about their jobs to start figuring out kind of what type of job you are interested in. There are a lot of programs too and resources if you have no one to talk to. And I will talk about three of my favorites. There is a new one. It's called, that I just recently found out about, and it's called PACE, PACE. It helps you to transition from finding your interests all the way to finding the jobs that are ideal for you. They work with you in every step of the way. And so if you start with the first phase, I guess you can call it, where they kind of get to know your interests. And what is cool about this is that in every phase, there's a chat section where you can send in your questions. And so you start with, there's 4 phases that you go through. You start with your interest and move up to finding your purpose eventually in your job. So that's one, it's PACE, P-A-C-E. The other one that is one of my favorite, and it's only because I live in Alberta, in Canada, and that's the ALIS website, A-L-I-S. Again, it is similar in that you can start by figuring out your interests, and it's all online. And then it leads you actually, if you do live in the Alberta area, to job opportunities that are out there. And another one that is in the US, but I find using it is very helpful no matter where you live. It's ONET Online. So ONET Online. And that one is also a very good resource. So there's 3 resources that can help you, but you can also work with as I mentioned earlier, people who are willing to mentor you, people who you might be interested in working similar jobs to theirs, so that, like, for example, if you're considering working with animals, you can interview a vet and see what a vet does in a typical workday. And that will introduce you a little bit more about the topic. And this is how you can build whether you want to work with animals or not. So lots of people, you'll be surprised, who are willing to answer your questions and support you. So there's no harm, I tell my clients, in sending that email and asking. But what is important is not to get discouraged. If you do not hear back from them, go find someone else. Some people are too busy and they may not have time to answer your questions, but you'd be surprised whoever is willing to answer your question at the time and that they will give you. So definitely try to attempt that. And if you have any further questions or would like to discuss this further, definitely send me an email or ask more questions. We do have time for more questions, and this is the next one. Should I include references in my resume? In North America, you do not include references in your resume. You would only include them if the employer asks for them. So in Canada and the US, there is no need to say the names of your references. There is no need to say references available upon request, because the assumption is that they are available. But typically, and on some applications I've seen recently, they would say, provide the name of 2 references. Sometimes just the name is enough and a contact, but sometimes they've also asked for letter of references. So definitely do not include it unless they ask for it if you live in North America. The next one, And that would probably be our final question for the day. If you have entered a question and you didn't get an answer, we will continue answering questions next week. I can, if you can attend, we will answer them verbally next week. If not, just let me know and I will send you a response via email. Everybody has my email. It's rightcareerfit@shaw.ca, but I'll give you my contact information towards the end of this session for sure. So how can I prepare for an interview? There are many ways to prepare for an interview. Most importantly is have a partner ask you some interview questions that you can pull off online or that you can check off on my Instagram. I do post a lot of, on my Instagram or Pinterest, I do post a lot of interview questions that you can check out and practice for an interview. But my advice to you is prepare 3 stories or 3 experiences that you have accomplished something and succeeded in it. Whether it is winning, whether if you're in high school, you won a debate club competition, how did you prepare for it? Think of all the details and write them down, or at least envision the story in your mind. And if you are working, think of numbers or targets that you've reached. Again, sit back, relax, and figure out how did you reach that target? What did you do to accomplish these targets? So definitely 3 stories. If you go in with these 3 stories, this is the best way to handle an interview. You will be ready for any question because you can take tidbits from that question and just use them from those stories and use them to answer any questions you're asked. Typically, your interviewer, what they're looking for is how your experience fit the position you're applying for. So that's really the best answer and best short answer. Any answer you reply with is, how does this answer fit with the position you're applying for? So whether it is that you enjoy playing video games, you can use that for sure. But you can say, how do you transport these skills from a video game to that opportunity that you're applying for? And if you can do that, then you will do well on the interview. So definitely practice, practice, practice. My idea is practice these 3 experiences, have someone ask you questions about them, and then go online or to my website and see the questions I have there and see how you can respond to them. And I guarantee you these 3 stories will help you a lot. This is all the time we have for questions today. What I would like to do is share with you a quote. Something for you to take home and reflect on till next week. It's accepting the winds of change. We started by asking a question about that, and we talked a little bit about it. So my question to you is, are you ready for the change that is to come? And I hope that your answer is yes. And for sure, think about it. Are you ready for the change to come? Accept the winds of change because they are coming our way right after the coronavirus lockdown is over. Make sure you're ready for it. Make sure you spend the time reflecting, and hopefully come back next week with some new questions as you reflect on the change to come. Now in the next image, I'm just gonna show you my contact, and we will be done. So thank you so much for showing up, and I will share with you lots of opportunities here for you to contact me and ask me questions, or to learn more about what I do, or to have some of your questions answered. So just go on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube too. YouTube, this is where I will be placing this video in case you joined late, or you want to share it with a friend, the discussion that we had today, the answers to the question, you can use on YouTube. I will be placing it momentarily right after we finish our call. And I'm also on Pinterest, and this is where a lot of the interview questions that we talked about, you will find them. I have a section that says interview questions. You can go check them and try practice for your interview there. And best of luck for those of you preparing for interviews and looking for jobs. And I will see you next week.